If you were to make a list of the most exciting fish that you can catch in salt water, tarpon would certainly have to rank right at the top of this list. For sheer acrobatic ability and beauty, they're just unmatched in the nearshore coastal fishery that we have here in South Florida, and a lot of people love fishing for them. However, they can be one of the most frustrating fish to try and get to eat a bait. Now, not many people aren't going to get excited looking at the scene we have here. These are a bunch of tarpon on the beach in the middle of a school of glass minnows, and they're feeding aggressively and rolling a lot, so you're looking at a lot of action. You're definitely going to get excited if you're an angler and you're looking at this. The reality is, though, you're not going to find this scenario very often. More often, you're going to be fishing in some kind of a backwater environment, looking at rolling tarpon, and they will not bite anything you throw at them. If this has been your situation ever and you've been frustrated by these fish, stick with me for a couple of minutes here, and I'm going to teach you a couple of tips that are going to put more tarpon on the end of your line. And we're going to convert this scene here with rolling fish into this scene. In order to understand what's going on there, why you're not getting a bite here, when you're seeing these fish rolling, you got to understand what the fish are doing. See, fish just don't feed 24 hours a day as much as we'd like them to, and it makes it very difficult if you're standing there watching fish all the time rolling, and it looks like they're feeding, but they're not. While you watch these fish rolling, it's important to understand that they're not feeding. What tarpon do when they roll is they're actually gulping oxygen out of the surface. Above the surface, they come up and take a breath, and they work that into their bloodstream. In low oxygen environments, that really helps them survive in there, and especially when the water gets warm, which is coincidentally when we see most of our tarpon here is in the summertime. So you're gonna be looking at rolling fish a lot, and they're just not gonna bite. How do we circumvent this problem? It's pretty simple. You've got to take advantage of the fish's opportunistic feeding behavior. Now, what I mean when I say that is these fish, although they're not eating, sometimes you can put a bait right in front of them and make it so easy for them to eat that they can't avoid just opening their mouth and swimming through the bait, and then you've got a bite. And in order to do that, you've got to consider a couple of things that are going on here, and you've got to do these couple of tips that are going to help you maximize your time spent on the water watching them. So the first thing you're going to need to do is go to a place where you know there are tarpon. I mean, you could do it anywhere and throw around. If you're not seeing rolling fish, this is not going to work because you're waiting to see an actual fish roll. If you've got a spot where you know there's fish and you see them rolling all the time and they're driving you crazy, this is where you want to head with this technique. Now, for starters, what you've got to do is get in the area where you can reach them with a cast and be patient. As I said, you're going to take advantage of their opportunistic feeding habit that they've got. Any fish will take a meal that's very easy to catch. If it swims in front of them and it's just in their mouth and all they got to do is open it, they're going to bite it most of the time. Now, the hardest part of this for a lot of people is the patience that's required to pull this off. What you have to do is you've got to actually stand there with your rod in hand, ready to make a cast and resist the urge to cast all over the place just blindly. What you really want to have is a fish rolls within casting range and you're ready to go in the instant that fish rolls. You're going to fire a shot right into the 10 ring. You want to try and hit the bullseye where that fish rolled. Now, these are schooling fish, and most of the time there's more than one, and when you see the fish roll, you're not actually casting to that fish necessarily, although he may bite it. Most of the time there's another fish or two behind it that don't roll, and they're going to actually see your bait sink down in front of them, and that's the fish that's going to have to swim through and eat it, and typically that's the fish that you're going to get the bite out of. So the hook is you're going to get into an area where there are a bunch of fish rolling and be patient and wait. Now remember, you're going to cast this out and you don't want to reel it fast, you don't want to jig it, you don't want to impart a lot of action to the bait, you want to get it in the bullseye where the fish rolled, And then you want to just reel that bait as slowly as possible, let it sink down with the fish, because the fish are rolling, and as they go back down towards the bottom, the bait's going to sink with them, and you've got a better opportunity to present that thing right in front of their face if you just let it sink rather than swimming it across the surface.
Now, as a final thought, what do you throw at these fish? This is a really important thing to remember. You want a bait that is a crab-like or a shrimp-like bait that does not look like it's trying to get away, basically just mimicking something that's drifting with the tide and happens to come along and find this fish and find himself face to face with it. And for that reason, I mean, a slow moving bait that doesn't have a lot of inherent action, not something that's really erratic or looks like it's about to bolt, is going to be perfect. For me, a bait like this DOA Terrorize has been my go-to bait for years. For me, my go-to confidence bait has been the DOA Terrorize, and no, this isn't sponsored content. This is just a bait that produces more bites for me consistently over the years than any other. Now, a DOA shrimp or a low impact, like a jerk bait type of bait, is going to work really well too. I mean, anything that works real slow and goes through the water, just not looking like it's trying to escape, is going to work for you. By contrast, a bait like this popper is going to be exactly the opposite of what you want to use. This is a bait that you've got to work hard and make a lot of noise with, and it just seems like something that's trying to get out of the way. So in this rolling scenario that we're talking about here, this is the opposite of what you're going to want to try and use. Now, I feel like this is the perfect design for this kind of fishing because, one, it doesn't have a lot of action, and two, you can fish all throughout the water column with it. It doesn't sink too fast, but it definitely sinks, and it'll get you down there in deep water when you need it to. This bait for me has been a proven game changer in tarpon fishing, and I've turned more people onto tarpon fishing just because of this little bait. And as I said, this is not sponsored content. I'm just a big fan of this lure. I highly recommend you try it. It's absolutely going to change the way you look at tarpon fishing. Now, if you've been frustrated with these rolling fish for a long time and you feel like they're a lost cause, do me a favor and give this technique a chance, and I guarantee you it's going to put more fish on the end of your line. You will completely change the way you look at tarpon when you're done with this. In fact, that's all I look forward to every summer, is going tarpon fishing here. I'm absolutely addicted to them. Now, another thing to remember too is the tarpon is a really fragile fish. Although they're a really durable and tough looking fish, a fight in hot water and a fight that really exhausts the fish to the point of, you've got to revive it, is really, really something that you've got to take seriously. And if you catch a fish, actually Florida law requires you to leave them in the water if they're over 40 inches long, but I recommend you do that with all of them when possible. And if you do catch one, release him as quickly as possible, but if he's really exhausted, take the time to give him a chance next to the boat and catch his breath, and that's going to ensure the fish swims away good. Try not to lift the fish out of the water or swim it to the beach and jump in and hug it and everybody lift the thing up for the Instagram hero shot. I mean, it looks cool and everything to you, but it's almost a death sentence for sure to the tarpon. So keep that in mind when you're fishing for them. These are a special fish, and they really deserve, the protection, the most protection we can provide them. And finally, if you've got any questions about this kind of fishing or any other type of fishing, please leave them in the comments for me. I'll answer every single question in the comments without hesitation. And if you've got an idea for something that you'd like to see me do a video about a certain type of fishing, I'm happy to try that out too. So get in the comments and let me know. Also, let me know what you think of this video. And if you've enjoyed this, please take a minute to like and subscribe to the channel. And if you've got any videos that you'd like to see done by me, I'm happy to help you out. Leave that in the comments as well. Till I get the next one done, thanks for joining me. I look forward to seeing you on the water. Thanks very much.